All right, so what we're going over today is going to be three sort of vanilla-based scents that I have here. One of them I've already kind of introduced to the channel in a previous video last week. The other two I haven't really mentioned on the channel, but we're going to be kind of comparing these fragrances to the original fragrances. So the first one that I have here is from Khadlaj, and this is Khadlaj Fursan White. So Fursan White is going to be their take on Vanilla Powder from Matière Premier. The next one is Luscious. So this is the one that I've already kind of talked about on the channel. This is French Avenue's take on Kayali's Yum Pistachio Gelato 33. And then the next one here is also from Fragrance World, but this is Vanille Drama from Fragrance World, and this is their take on Dior's Vanilla Diorama. So just gonna be kind of going over the note breakdowns of each one of these, comparing the notes, and then obviously comparing the smell, performance, stuff like that. All right. So I'm gonna start off with the Fursan White. Now for the note breakdown for Matière Premier's Vanilla Powder, in the top notes of that fragrance, you're going to get coconut powder and heliotrope. In the mid, you get Madagascar vanilla. And then in the base, you get vanilla absolute, white musk, musk, Palo Santo, lactones, and coconut. Now for Fursan White, the top notes of this, you're going to get jasmine and bergamot. In the mid, you get coconut, musk, and almond. And then in the base, you get vanilla, cedarwood, and nutmeg. So obviously, you know, there is a slightly different note breakdown between the two fragrances, but when I smell these two fragrances side by side, there is really, I would say, not too much of a super noticeable difference between these two fragrances. The main difference that I pick up on anyway is mainly in like the opening of the two fragrances. So for the Matière Premier Vanilla Powder, you can smell that heliotrope note that's in this fragrance, but to me, I don't know, the way that it comes across, at least on my skin anyway, it doesn't come across as smelling like super like natural smelling. It comes across as smelling kind of harsh to me. Like that was the biggest thing that I noticed. I was expecting this to kind of smell like slightly more higher quality or whatnot than what the Fursan White did. But I didn't really get that. The way that the opening of this smells, to me, it just kind of came across as a little bit harsher than what the Fursan White did. For the most part, when you spray both of these on, you're kind of met with like a blast of like a really sort of powdery vanilla and sort of coconut, like a dried coconut sort of smell. Basically, like if you took like vanilla bean powder and you put it in like a food shredder or something like that, and then you put in like coconut, like dried coconut flakes, you shredded that up and then you kind of opened it up and smelled it. That's kind of what you get for the most part with, you know, the scent profile overall. It's just a really sort of smooth, creamy vanilla and coconut type of smell that does to me have like a slight sort of floral feel to it. Like, you know, definitely to me, I would say more kind of like white florals and like a little bit of musk. But that's for the most part the main things that I pick up on with, you know, both the Fursan White as well as the Vanilla Powder. Is mainly you're just getting kind of like a really sort of powdery vanilla and you know, powdery creamy coconut. Now, like I said, the heliotrope that you smell in the opening of Vanilla Powder, that definitely is one of the most noticeable differences that I noticed between the two fragrances. Like I said, I just didn't really care for the way that note was, you know, coming across, at least on my skin anyway, in the original. But I mean, outside of like that first kind of, I feel like that note, it kind of sticks around for about 5 to 7 minutes or so. So I guess you could say like 5 to 10 basically. And then after that, for the most part, you get that really kind of powdery, creamy vanilla and coconut sort of feel to the fragrance. Like, this is not a very like complex type of scent. It's a very kind of simple, straightforward type of, you know, vanilla coconut type of scent. And I mean, the name is definitely fitting for the scent profile, vanilla powder. It smells like that. Like I said, like if you were to take vanilla bean powder and mix it with, you know, ground coconut, dried coconut, that's pretty much what you get with this. Now, it does, to me, it is like slightly kind of feminine leaning, I would say. So like if you're somebody who is not really into wearing vanilla scents, then I would say you probably would want to avoid this one, because this is very kind of vanillic and powdery. So, you know, for a lot of people, they are probably going to feel like this is a little bit, you know, too sort of feminine. But I mean, at least for me anyway, it's another one of those kind of unisex scents that has a slight sort of feminine lean to it. So, I mean, you know, if you're used to wearing those types of scents and, you know, you feel perfectly confident wearing those scents, then I think you'll still be able to appreciate this particular scent profile, whether it's the Fursan White or the vanilla powder from Matier Premier. Now, for the performance, there are definitely some performance differences for sure. And I would say it's just in the longevity department. Projection wise, at least on my skin, these seem to project like exactly the same. You know, you get pretty moderate projection, I would say, for about the first hour and a half or so, and then it kind of dials back a little bit. As far as the longevity on this, the Fursan White, for me, I'm kind of getting like around that 7 to, at the maximum, about 8-hour mark for like total longevity. Whereas the Matier Premier vanilla powder, this seems to stick on my skin a little bit longer, like at least I would say about 9 to 10 plus hours. So that's the other main difference that I could say that I noticed between vanilla powder and Fursan White, was definitely the longevity seemed to be a little bit better on the Matier Premier. Now, it could be a case where this Khadlaj Fursan White, maybe over time as it sort of maturates, it may get a little bit better in terms of, you know, the longevity. I'm not really that experienced with a lot of Khadlaj fragrances. I believe the last Khadlaj fragrance that I purchased was like their Louis Vuitton Imagination inspired fragrance. I think it was the Chorus Blue Spice. I believe that's from Khadlaj. I think that's like the only other Khadlaj fragrance that I can remember that I bought. And that fragrance, I didn't really keep that one that long to really see, you know, if it, you know, changed over time or whatnot. But this one, I mean, to me, like I said, at least in the opening, I prefer the way that this smells over the Matier Premier. So, you know, definitely this has a plus in that department. And I mean, overall, just in terms of the smell, outside of like that initial sort of 5 to 10 minutes, this smells exactly the same as what vanilla powder does. So like basically from like mid to dry down, it smells exactly the same. I didn't pick up on any real differences at all between this and vanilla powder. It smelled like a 1-to-1, basically. Like I didn't get like any sort of difference in depth or quality, or, you know, like any sort of note difference, you know. It's, again, in that mid to sort of dry down area. It was only in the opening with that heliotrope note, whereas, you know, this fragrance doesn't have that note, whereas the Matier Premier does. And I actually prefer that this one doesn't have it. So yeah, man, this is a really, really good interpretation of a fragrance that's, I believe, almost $300. I think the vanilla powder is like $290 or $295 or something like that for, I think, a 100 ml bottle. Whereas I was able to pick the Fursan White up on Amazon for, I believe, like $40. So This is absolutely worth it. I would say if you're looking for that scent profile of vanilla powder, Fursan White is absolutely going to be a good choice. Now, for my closeness rating on this fragrance, this is easily, like, I would say 98% close, basically. With the main difference just, again, being that initial sort of heliotrope note that you get in the original vanilla powder. That's not going to be in this one. Maybe some people may like that, note that's the heliotrope that's in this. I personally didn't care for it, so it was a good thing that this didn't have it. But yeah, man, outside of like that first 5 to 10 minutes or so, with that initial heliotrope blast that you get, along with like the coconut and the vanilla, this smells basically like a 1-to-1 to vanilla powder. Now, for my overall sort of satisfaction rating on this fragrance in terms of just how I like this fragrance overall, to me, I would say this is like a solid 7.5 out of 10. So it's not going to be like my absolute favorite sort of vanilla based scent. I was curious to know what vanilla powder smelled like. I kind of had an inkling that this was a little bit more kind of feminine leaning, because I feel like for the most part, when I ever saw people talking about this scent, it was mainly women, and mainly, kind of like women-based channels that were kind of talking about this fragrance. So, I kind of had an inkling that maybe this would be a little bit feminine leaning, and it is. But it is still a fragrance that I would still, comfortably wear for sure. So yeah, I would give this one like a solid 7.5 out of 10. It is a very kind of creamy, powdery, vanillic sort of coconut type of scent. But it is very warm, I would say, and definitely a fragrance that I would recommend for, I would say, kind of like late winter and spring for the most part is what I would kind of recommend this fragrance for. All right. And I mean, definitely I would recommend it for men and women, but I would say for men, you do have to be a lover of vanilla scents, and you have to be okay with wearing something that has a slight sort of feminine lean to it. So this one is Fursan White from Khadlaj. All right, so the next one is going to be Luscious from French Avenue. So again, this is going to be French Avenue's take on Yum Pistachio Gelato 33 from Kayali. And as far as the note breakdown goes, for Yum Pistachio Gelato 33, it has a pretty large note breakdown. So for the top notes, you get pistachio, ice cream, bergamot, hazelnut, rum, and cardamom. In the mid, you get lily of the valley, pear, jasmine, peony, geranium, white peach, and raspberry. And then in the base, you get whipped cream, marshmallow, cotton candy, tonka bean, lacune, sandalwood, cacao, and cedar. Now for Luscious, you get a much more simpler note breakdown. So for Luscious, you're gonna get in the top notes pistachio, cardamom, and bergamot. In the mid, you get peanut and saffron. And then in the base, you get vanilla, tonka, musk, and honey. All right. So much simpler note breakdown, but I was blown away by how much higher quality Luscious smelled, in my opinion anyway, than what the Kayali did. Even though Luscious is like a fraction of the cost of the Kayali. I don't remember exactly how much the Kayali costs, but I think for like a 100 ml bottle, the Kayali is like, I believe anywhere from like $130 to $150, something like that. Whereas the Luscious, this is, depending on what site you get it from, I got this one from Fragrance Buy, so I think I got this one for like 30 something dollars. But I've seen this one go for as much as about like $57, so like right around that $60 mark or so on some websites. I would say, it's definitely is going to be best for you to try to get this for as cheap as you possibly can. But even at that kind of $50 to $60 mark, again, for the quality that you get with this scent, I do think that it is still worth it. The main thing that I could say is, more higher quality and more realistic smelling, at least in my opinion, in Luscious than what it is in the Kayali. It's the pistachio. It's, the main part of the fragrance. The pistachio in Luscious seems to be a little bit more prominent. It seems to be a little bit more nuttier, more kind of realistic smelling, and it has more depth to it to me. The pistachio note in the Kayali, to me, it comes across as being a little bit more kind of lighter. And honestly, the Kayali to me smelled more like a clone of this than what this smells, compared to the Kayali. Like I said, this definitely had, noticeably more depth to it, more kind of complexity, and it just smelled a little bit more realistic to me than what the Kayali did. To me, the Kayali, the pistachio, like obviously it's there, but it kind of, I don't know, it doesn't stick out as much, or it's not as prominent as what it is in Luscious, and it doesn't seem to me like it has as much sort of complexity and quality as what it does in the Luscious. This is like, I was really surprised to see that this smelled so much better to me than what the Kayali did. Now, also in the opening, to me, the Kayali comes across as smelling a little bit more kind of feminine leaning than what this does. Luscious to me, and like I mentioned before in the previous video when I had mentioned this particular scent, Luscious to me smells more of sort of like a just straight down the middle kind of unisex, nutty, kind of light, sweet, vanillic, aromatic type of scent. Whereas the Kayali, I think it kind of leans more kind of into like those sort of sweeter notes and like the florals and stuff like that. In the Kayali, at least in the opening, I would say going into like the mid. Now, once you kind of get to like the dry down between, the Kayali and Luscious, I feel like in the far dry down, for the most part, the Yum Pistachio Gelato and Luscious, they do smell the closest at that point. But even at that point, the pistachio still smells more prominent, higher quality, and stronger overall than what the Kayali does. Now, that's also another thing that I noticed with Luscious compared to Yum Pistachio Gelato. Luscious definitely is the stronger projecting scent overall than what the Yum Pistachio Gelato is. Like when you first spray this on and you're smelling this side by side between, the Luscious and the Kayali, this is noticeably stronger than what the Kayali is. And I mean, this isn't to me like the strongest scent in general. I guess the overall scent profile, but even Luscious, when I first sprayed this on, it didn't really seem like the most strongest scent. So I mean, the Kayali, at least on me anyway, it comes off as very kind of light. This definitely has a little bit more density to it, a little bit more push. So I did appreciate that for sure. Now for the longevity on this is pretty decent so far. I would say average to decent. So I get like around 7 hours or so out of this fragrance for the most part, like 6 to 7 hours. Whereas with the Yum Pistachio Gelato, that's more kind of like around like the 4.5 to 5 hour mark on me. So again, that fragrance doesn't last as long as what the Luscious does on me. It doesn't smell as high quality or as realistic as what Luscious does. And obviously the price is a lot higher for, the Kayali. So I would definitely say that, if you're looking for that type of scent profile or just, a pistachio based scent in general, kind of pistachio, vanilla, a little bit of florals, then this is definitely Luscious from French Avenue. I would say would be the better choice easily. Now, in terms of my closeness rating, this is not necessarily that close, I would say, to Kayali, to where it's like a 90% or better. This to me is like around 80 to 85%, but it's 80 to 85% in like the best way. Like, this to me is a better version of what Yum Pistachio Gelato 33 is. So I'm glad that they didn't make this exactly the same, or try to make this exactly the same as what the Kayali is, because in my opinion, this definitely smells better. All right. Now, for my just overall rating, just as far as how I, kind of like this fragrance overall, this I would say is easily like a 9 out of 10 for sure. When I initially smelled it, it kind of took me a minute to kind of like really understand what was going on with this, because I was expecting something slightly different with this fragrance. But the more that I wear this fragrance, the more I really, really enjoy it a lot. Despite it being a really sort of nutty scent, which, at least for me anyway, I don't have too many scents in my collection that, have a really sort of nutty smell to them. But this comes across as smelling really, really good, man. So again, I would give this one easy 9 out of 10. And then as far as like when I would recommend wearing this fragrance, I kind of feel like you could probably wear this fragrance like all year round, to be honest. It is light enough to be worn in the summertime, I would say, in more of sort of like a normal sort of climate. So definitely not here in Las Vegas where it's like 100+ degrees in the summer, but anywhere else where, the average sort of summer temperature is between, I would say probably 70 to 85 degrees or so, then yeah, I would say you could absolutely wear this in the summertime in those types of environments. All right. So that one is Luscious. I do like this one a little bit more than the Kayali. And then the last one is Vanille Drama from Fragrance World. So this scent, it doesn't really do it for me. I was curious about this scent because it was another sort of inspired fragrance of a Dior private line collection. I do like a lot of those scents that are in that collection. So I always like to try those and kind of see, how they smell. And most of them are very sort of unique smelling fragrances. They do smell very kind of niche to me. And I mean, at least from what I've kind of experienced, none of them really smell like exactly the same, So this one was, another fragrance that I went ahead and picked up and wanted to try. And so the note breakdown for Vanilla Diorama, the original fragrance, it's going to be in the top notes. You get orange, pink pepper, and lemon. In the mid, you get rum, cacao, and cardamom. And then in the base, you get bourbon, vanilla, sandalwood, and patchouli. Now, I couldn't find any note breakdown that was listed on any website that showed that this had a different note breakdown. So I'm assuming, I guess, that it's, the same as what it is in the Vanilla Diorama. And I mean, basically, the way that this fragrance comes across to me is when you first spray it on, you do definitely get like a blast of like those citruses. So definitely you smell the orange, you smell the lemon, and you kind of get like this sort of spicy sort of vanilla mixed with that kind of, rum note, I feel like is what you're getting with this. And I mean, just overall, the scent to me, it smells very sort of mature. Like that's the main thing that I'm getting from this is it's very, very mature smelling. This scent profile overall to me kind of smells like something that I would expect to smell on like a 50+ year old, This is not really the type of scent that I could see someone either my age, which I'm in my late 30s, or someone even younger than that, wearing. It is definitely, it's a scent that, I can still sort of appreciate, but like I said, it's not a scent that I would particularly wear. Now, in terms of like the differences between the Vanille Drama and the Vanilla Diorama from Dior, definitely the Dior, it comes across as smelling a lot more higher quality and more complex. When you first spray the Vanilla Diorama on, the way that the orange, the pink pepper, and the lemon come across, they do smell a lot more higher quality, more complex, and they're more, the Vanilla Diorama is stronger for sure than what Vanille Drama is. Overall, this seems to be more of sort of like a muted version of the scent profile. So I would say just all the notes that you get in Vanilla Diorama, just in general, expect all of those notes to be muted by at least about, I would say 20% or so, 15 to 20% in Vanille Drama. So while this does smell pretty close to what you get with the Vanilla Diorama, it does lack, again, complexity, depth, and it is definitely a little bit weaker than what the Vanilla Diorama is for sure. So, this is definitely a good budget choice for sure. I believe I paid like around $30 or so for this 100 ml bottle, whereas obviously the Dior, I don't know exactly how much those bottles cost right now, but I believe like the 120 ml bottles are like at least over $300 or right around $300, something like that. So a lot more expensive, basically like 10 times more expensive. Do I think that the Dior gives you 10 times more quality, or do I think that the Dior smells 10 times better than this? No, I don't. I really don't. I think that the Dior smells, maybe 10 to 15% better than what the Vanille Drama does. So, does that constitute you paying, 10 times more? In my opinion, it doesn't. I think this still, even though it lacks those things that I said that it lacks, I think for the price difference, this is still a pretty respectable choice, if you like that scent profile, basically. I would say you probably will have to kind of spray this one a little bit more, if you want to kind of get like the comparable sort of performance, that you're getting with Vanilla Diorama. You'll kind of have to overspray this one. And, again, you are going to lack some depth and complexity with this. But I feel like overall, again, you are kind of getting a very comparable sort of experience with Vanille Drama. Now, as far as like the performance, again, this is going to lack in terms of the projection for sure. So projection wise, I would say it's probably about 20%, less projecting than what the Vanilla Diorama is. All right. So again, you'll want to spray a little bit more with this fragrance. And then for the overall longevity, the longevity on this, it is still pretty decent. So, I was still able to get like around 8 hours or so with the Vanille Drama. But with the Vanilla Diorama, that was like more of a 10-hour fragrance, 10 plus hours with the Vanilla Diorama from Dior. So the Dior is definitely going to last longer, obviously, with it being a higher quality scent. And then as far as my sort of overall closeness rating for Vanille Drama, I would say this is going to be about 85% close, basically, to Vanilla Diorama. So definitely not, a terrible interpretation. I feel like 85%, is still a respectable, interpretation of a fragrance. Obviously 90+% is going to be better, but this for this to be 85% close, and it costs about 10 times or more less than, you know, what the Dior does, I feel like this is still a solid choice if you like that scent profile. You know, if you like a really kind of mature smelling, spicy, slightly floral, kind of slightly boozy type of vanilla scent, then, you know, this is definitely going to be up your alley. But again, I mean, at least the way that this comes across to me, smells very mature. And like I mentioned in a previous video when I was talking about this, at least for me anyway, the smell that I get, it just reminds me of like just straight just diapers and vanilla. Like that's literally what I get with this. You may not, you know, that may not come across for you, but I mean, that's the first thing that pops up in my head is diapers and vanilla. So, I mean, that's literally, that's the best way for me to kind of describe this. And that's why I said it does smell very sort of mature smelling. All right. So as far as my sort of overall rating on this fragrance, this is like a 4 or a 5 out of 10. You know, it's definitely not a fragrance that I intend to keep at all. It's not a fragrance that I really intend to wear. It's just not for me. But, you know, if you're into vanilla Diorama, like if you smelled it and you're looking for a cheap alternative, then I would absolutely still recommend picking this fragrance up. Just know that it's going to lack a little bit of complexity and strength. All right. So that is my take on Vanille Drama from Fragrance World. And that's my take on all three fragrances. Definitely let me know in the comments what you all think about all three of these fragrances. If you smelled all three, and if you have you also smelled the original fragrances that they're inspired by? And do you agree with my assessment of these three fragrances? All right. Also, I'll have links in the description to where you can purchase all of these fragrances. And again, if you're brand new to the channel, do me a favor, go ahead and subscribe. And again, that's Jamar from Vegas Scents. I'll see you on the next video.